not, Player Five, go ahead, share your My Hero Academia theory.
All right. It's a pretty lengthy one. Feel free to interject if ever you get to a point where you're like, huh? But I'm gonna tell you the main point of this theory after reading these chapters, and then I'm gonna get into it. And so the main point is that Deku is All for One's child, and his quirk is the ability to replicate quirks. Okay. So now, this is Deku's secret quirk, of course. So this is my info on it. So we know from Aizawa, first thing is that he doesn't just like shut off quirk. Like Aizawa doesn't shut off quirks. He suppresses their quirk factor, right? So we know that there is a possibility to basically suppress one's quirk factor. Your quirk is not gone; it's just suppressed. But for all intents and purposes, your quirk might as well be gone, right? Okay, so now my first set of or my first part of the theory is that All for One's quirk. Don't you know how they say in My Hero that people learn new stuff about their quirk all the time, and that you may think your quirk is one thing, but a few years down the road realize it's another. I think All for One's quirk is a two-parter, and one is that he doesn't steal your quirk; he suppresses your quirk factor and then replicates that quirk factor in another person. So that's the first part. Okay. And then we
So it's
know
like a
that
trade.
yeah, it's like a trade, not an actual steal, more like a trade.
Okay.
And then so another thing that we know is that quirks are also can be hereditary. So like you can get an aspect of your parents' quirk. We know this through the Todorokis, right? So let's just say if Deku is All for One's son or some relation to him, then with that aspect of All for One, like if it is the way I said it worked, then it would be reasonable to say like, okay, Deku got a portion of his father's quirk, the ability to replicate quirks. Okay. Um, and but without having to suppress it. This could be a move forward or it can just be a side thing, however you feel about it. Okay. So then I think that the Dr. Ujiko then takes Deku's quirk when he's a child. I think that's Ujiko's whole purpose is to take strong quirks from children to give to All for One. Okay. We know that at least before the main story, no moves weren't a thing. And the only reason no moves are a thing now is because they can now replicate quirks. Right. So up until recent history, the Ujiko and All for One did not have the ability to replicate a quirk. So this isn't the ability of All for One. This is some new thing that they got, right? Um, so I believe that their ability to replicate quirks in Nomus and in other people is through Deku's old quirk, the ability to replicate quirks. And we've seen examples like All for One itself was even replicated. Another bit of evidence I have for this that it is not some technology that allows them to replicate quirks is that we see the same thing with Erie. Like there's no technology that allows you to erase quirk. Only Erie's quirk that rewinds you to before you had a quirk factor can erase your quirk, right? So we already got precedents in this world that quirks can be used as pseudo technology to manipulate quirks.
Okay.
Okay. So then and now the reason I think that Deku has this quirk. Okay. So now we're gonna go to the Deku part. Why I believe Deku has this quirk.
He has. You
He
think he has a replicate quirk right now, or are you saying like he?
Yes, I think he has
Okay.
it because remember I said that All for One's ability is to suppress your quirk and then replicate it. And the reason I believe he has a suppressed version of his quirk and his quirk isn't actually gone is because once you give him All for One boosts the quirk that you already have. So if you had a suppressed quirk, there's reason to believe that All for One could boost you back to having that quirk. And the first thing we see Deku do when he gets All for One that's abnormal is now he can reproduce the quirks of these other people. No other person with All for One could do that. And some could argue like, hey, maybe All for One wasn't powerful enough yet. Or maybe I should say One for All. Y'all know what the fuck I'm talking about though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Maybe
could.
people would say, oh, One for All wasn't powerful enough yet, but I'm like, come on, bro. All Might was the most powerful hero in history. That motherfucker was powerful enough. I think it's because Deku has the ability to replicate quirks that he can sense the quirks these original users had and then replicate their quirk, which is
So
why
do you
Deku is
think
getting
the
extra quirks.
so do you think the relationship with the like Avatar esque relationship he has with the previous users is due to his quirk?
I think the Avatar esque relationship is due to the It could be either, but I personally think it's just due to the nature of One for All. But then the ability to access their quirks, like
Mhm.
because even All Might said he saw the visages, right? So we know that that's not a Deku thing, right? But
Okay.
Deku was able to see the visages and then copy their quirk, which I think is some like different manifestation. It could be of his ability to copy quirks or
Yeah.
replicate quirks. Um, and then this also takes me to the My Hero movie. In the My Hero movie, Deku gives Bakugo One for All, but at the end of the day, Deku still had One for All. And my
Mhm.
argument, what they argued in the movie is that, oh, One for All is sentient now, which I think is goofy because it's just a quirk. I think that maybe Deku was actually using his ability to replicate quirks to give Bakugo All for One, which is why he got the strength enhancing and not the other quirks because he can replicate quirks.
Mhm.
I
Mm.
think that's my theory right there.
I mean, I think I buy a lot of what you're saying. The only thing that I go like confusing, like, so I guess the I was up with you until it goes like how he got his power back. Because my thought is I thought they could have easily explained that away with Eri. Like since he had Eri backpack for that period of time, like while he was fighting Overhaul, they could say
Mhm.
maybe it came back at that point in time because I'm guessing if we look back at the storyline, all of the shit started changing right after that arc anyways.
That's
So it
true.
actually probably lines up a lot with the time frame. Uh, and then other than that, the only other question would be if he's all for one son. Um, just like no, I think that would pretty much be it. Just when he got it back, and then I think the after that is just the extra relationship they added with the visages and how that applies to like him taking the quirks from One for All, because I can see that being explained two ways. One, kind of what you were like throwing out there, but two, also that since his power like boosts quirks as well, I'm guessing it like is taking what his original quirk was and taking turning it up to 11. So it might be that now it does allow him to take, I don't know, powers that were associated with All for One, because it's like technically a high level version of his original quirk replication power. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
I
But
uh I like that addition to the theory even better. So now that is officially a part of the theory.
Wow.
So boom, right there. There's the full theory. Airy backpack.
Damn. Huh. Well, so this just goes on with the theory that Eri can get Muriel back to how he was, right?
That
yeah, I
trash
think
ass nigga done.
You said it's
yeah,
already been done?
No, I said that trash ass nigga done.
Bro, stop putting disrespect on
Nani?
Ghost, man.
Wait, what?
the slander
I just felt
crazy.
like I just felt
You
like
just got another nomination, bro. Goofy of the year.
I just felt like disrespecting the nigga. Y'all gotta be cool with me. We in troubled times right now.
Wow.
Same nigga that just requested that I shoot whoever was in my house, aka my girl.
Hey, bro, you see how they got me thinking different, bro. You can't take anything I say as evidence for Goofy of the year.
What?
Oh
If I'm
my
tripping
god.
right now, bro. Don't make me sue the company. I'll sue y'all ass, bro.
God
Wow.
damn.
You know this conversation is recorded, right?
I thought you was
Yeah.
even trying to get it, and now you just wow. Like what? Damn.
Crazy.
Damn. Yeah, that might need to be concrete goofy nomination. God damn. I was
Yeah.
right with that. Okay, let's switch back gears. We were talking about right, the theory. To be honest, the biggest question I have is that I was going back and forth with it. I think it was you who first mentioned it about Deku being all for one son. And the only reason I can't get that is because of the personality of all for one. Because like knowing him, there's no way he would just like give up his heir, right? Because like I mean he's kind of like that kind of controlling, like always wanting to kind of f up the next generation. And in my opinion, at least at the time, who would be better to do it than like his own flesh and blood, especially if it was a possibility of his flesh and blood having part of part of his quirk in the first place. So I just don't. I mean, it's hard for me to really see that he'll turn out Deku being his son. because of that fact alone.
I feel like, but then that goes to imply that somehow All For One cares about his children. You know, we do know that Deku Dad is like not seen, so he's probably gonna be something important. And then like my thing is like he chose his successor. He chose specifically for his successor to be the grandchild of a bitch he ain't like. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe he did like her. Who knows? They even say Deku mom kind of looked like her, or All Might said that. You know, so I don't know about that part. All I can say is I think it is an assumption that he would care about a child if he had one, because he hasn't necessarily shown the capacity to care about anything yet, in my opinion.
Tomura, I guess, but
well, I mean, like, no, I meant in the sense of like he wouldn't care for his child, quote unquote, but his child would be the perfect successor at the time, considering. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, if he was always about, you know, it would be kind of like an Endeavor situation, right? Like the first person you're gonna like, you know, think about, at least as far as like leaving your legacy behind, would be your own children, right? So like, why would he like immediately give up his own child?
I mean, I think he's still trying to, live forever. That's just my opinion. But I could see if he's just like Endeavor. Endeavor is effectively he was cheating his or treating his children like objects. Like, you may be my legacy, but I really only want you for your quirk. So it could be literally the exact same thing with what's his name, All For One. He could be like, hey, yeah, you're my kid, but I'm only using you so that you could birth me a cool quirk that I can steal.
Right. I mean, I'm just saying, like, that would just like support the fact that he would at least chill with Deku until he finds out, though, right?
Why?
What do you mean?
I don't necessarily see why that supports the fact that he would have an emotional connection to Deku. Like, there's no reason to have a emotional connection with Deku if you only made him to get you a cool quirk.
No. I'm not saying no. I'm not supporting like the emotional fact as far as like actually caring for your kid. I mean, we're both on the same page as far as like to looking at we'll just say young person at the time to carry on the legacy. Because like, you know, I'm pretty much with your theory in the sense that he's still using Shigaraki in that fashion. It's not like, you know, All For One cares and loves for Shigaraki. Just at the time of like, you know, supposedly the story is true. Like when he met, Shigaraki was just the perfect person to do so. I'm just saying though that he still found Shigaraki when he was like a little kid. So why Shigaraki? Like, why was the focus off of Deku and onto Shigaraki in the first place? That's the kind of like what I'm like having a tough time trying to understand. That's
maybe because Shigaraki older, so they like were young at different points in time. I like that.
Oh, actually, that's a good question. Like, what is actually the age difference between Shigaraki and Deku?
Well, Shigaraki's an adult at the very least. I'm pretty sure we probably look it up somewhere. I'll look it up and see. But I know he's adult at the very least. So
one thing I wanted to throw out there, though, I think that could also be a possible explanation is, I mean, All For One. He's 20, and then Deku's what, like 13,
14, I think.
Oh, okay. 6 years.
Okay, I'm seeing it now. Okay, so Shigaraki, they're saying right now is 20. Okay. All right, so I guess that makes sense in that respect. Okay, then never mind. I'll take that back then. So the focus was just on him because he was just born first. And then, like, he didn't really care about the other kids because he already had Shigaraki. All right, never mind. That's it.
I would actually see, like, more, as far as the All For One thing. I wouldn't see Deku as a direct descendant of All For One, because my thing is, like, why then, why now? I feel like All For One has lived for a bunch of years, so he's probably had a bunch of kids. So I personally think his dad probably could be, like, and this is only because I want to buy that there might be, like, other country theory out there. So I feel like his dad could be someone of prominence in another country. And what happens is, in order to do that segue of like, oh, Deku leaves, bulks up somewhere else and comes back and like catches bodies, is his dad is existing, but his dad is actually a descendant of All For One. So it's like it's in the bloodline, but he's not like a direct All For One descendant in the same way that Tomura is not a like the Nana Shimura or whatever is not his mom. You know what I'm saying? It's his grandma or whatever. So it's like it's still they're related, but not in the where they have to do this like direct, oh, this dude's your father and he's like super evil thing. It could just be like, oh well, my descendant is this super evil motherfucker, and you can still carry the same weights without you having to explain all things. Because I still don't get mostly why I don't buy that theory is Deku's mom. It's just her as a person. I don't get why All For One would pick her as a suitor. You know what I'm saying? How they ended up meeting. Like none of it adds up, and none of her backstory adds enough in my mind to really explain why she would be chosen to bear Deku the child. So I guess, but that's what I'm saying. It just doesn't add up to me. Like I feel like it could be like he has a real hero dad out there somewhere in another country, and that guy you can make up whatever story you want as how the mom and them met. But then you could just say that guy's a descendant of All For One.
They did say that his dad is a salary man, so we know he's not a hero unless he like a vigilante or something.
Maybe. But I mean, heroes get salaries, don't they?
Oh, this nigga, okay, a businessman.
He can work for the government. On that Hawk shit, they're trying to introduce that whole Hawk's government experiment backend shit, so he could work for the fucking government on some CIA shit.
Ooh.
He could be. Yeah, we'll see.
I just don't buy I just am always iffy about the All For One and Deku being his direct descendant because I still feel like they didn't even do that with Tomura, and All For One has lived for so many years. That's also the other big piece. Is like if you live for all of these years, I mean, you got to have kids out there if you chose to have them, or you just didn't, right? Why then? Why now? You know, if you didn't have them before. That's all.
Yeah, my only answer or rebuttal to that is that Quirk generation is random, as we've seen with Endeavor and his kids. It could be that he literally be out there, putting his seed to the world. You feel me? And it could just be like, hey, this is a lit Quirk. I need that. Because so we know he is able to transfer what's that Quirk? All For One. So it's just like I don't know, why give that Quirk to the doctor if your goal isn't to steal quirks of people, So I don't know. We'll see. That's a theory. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, we got ourselves another My Hero theory. Niggas wasn't buying the Dobby shit, but it's okay. This one might have some more stickiness to it. All right. Anything else on manga? Anybody want to talk about? Or we can move on to MVPs and Goofies.